padding is the name of the game when it comes to his dark materials. I don't want to sound like a banging gong, making the same sound over and over again, but I feel like this is going to be my main complaint about the show till it ends, either in this season or hopefully in 1 or 2 seasons more. But I enjoy this show. I don't want to sound like I hate it, but it is a little aggravating to me that it just feels like there was little plot or progression this episode. I do feel like there is an advantage to having a longer runtime. It allows the producers of this show to really, develop the world more, and they do a really good job of that. This episode in particular, I thought that the scenes in the real world in Oxford were very well done, very well established. Instead of having them hang out in some generic location, they gave them a very, very specific location to hang out in, and that was a good idea. I think that the highlight of the episode for me were the scenes between Lyra and Dr. Mary Malone, played by Simone Kirby. I think that the development of the dust and the explanation of that, as a book reader, I often forget, what people don't know about the dust. And this was a helpful expositional sequence for my wife, who watches the show with me and was not entirely sure what was going on. The explanation that it's kind of a nebulous concept, a little bit vague, that they're describing it as original sin. Obviously, this plays into the anti-religious aspects of this show, which they've dialed back significantly for the TV series, kind of probably trying to avoid the controversy that came with Philip Pullman's novels to a certain extent. They've kind of exchanged the more overtly religious aspects of the villains to more of an authoritarian style bad guys, which I personally, it makes them more generic, but it might make them less offensive to some. Although to me, it's his dark materials. It's going to offend who it's going to offend. If you've heard of this series, and you know what Philip Pullman was trying to accomplish, you're going to be offended or you're not. That's just how I see it. But I think that, having this conversation with Dr. Mary Malone was very helpful, I think, for a lot of members of the audience who maybe haven't read the book, like my wife, for instance. And I feel like the character is very, very well acted and written. I think she's a nice addition to the series. I think she acts like a real person. I think that she is very, very reminiscent of the character from the book. You can see her, just having this good nature and her calmness with Lyra. Now, some of this scene did come off a little bit odd to me. I think that it might have been the acting a little bit. It might have been the writing. I felt that the way that Lyra unburdened herself seemed a little bit forced. Like, would she really reveal all this stuff to a stranger? And none of it really made sense. It was stuff that if you heard a child of Lyra's age saying this stuff, you would think that she was off her rocker. So the fact that Lyra then says, now show me your research on the dust, and then Mary complies, that to me just seemed like poor writing. I think they needed to work this scene out a little bit better. I don't remember exactly how it happened in the book, but I don't remember it being this shaky in the execution. One of the big moments this episode, obviously, you've got Mrs. Coulter orchestrating this war between the witches and the magisterium. I think this plotline would work more effectively if, as some other reviewers have stated, we knew anything about the witches except the expositional drops that we have with them. I think all the actresses playing the witches are doing a fine job, although none of them is Eva Green, who I wish this show had. But they're all doing a fine job. But I have to say, I don't like what was being bombed. Like, that was a question I saw another reviewer asking, and I have to agree that like this scene was supposed to fill us as the viewer with a sense of dread and concern, but it was hard to feel very concerned when it was really unclear what the magisterium is destroying. Now, I get some of this might be that this is a show for kids, so they can't show the full power of the magisterium's destruction to the extent that they would in a show for adults. But still, I mean, I think they could have at least, shown us what was being bombed prior to the bombs dropping so that we could kind of have a sense of why the witches were so horrified by this. So overall, not a lot in this episode. I think that there were some elements that were kind of reestablishing characters for this season. Good example of this were the scenes with Lord Boreal and his conversation with Mrs. Coulter. To me, that just seemed like a, well, we're both in position again for another season conversation. And, his scene with Lyra where he approaches her in the real world. I thought that was, again, a good sequence. It kind of, you knew nothing was really going to happen, but it was interesting to see these two characters come face to face. So anyways, those are my thoughts on His Dark Materials, Season 2, Episode 2, The Cave. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're interested in seeing more reviews on this channel, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.